Welcome to the PennLive interview with Steve Zack, professional basketball player and Redland graduate. Steve went on to play at Salle from 2011 through 2015. Ever since, he's been following a global basketball journey. He's played professionally in Latvia, Bulgaria, Poland, and Israel. Currently, Steve is playing in Japan. He plays for Nagasaki Velka of the B League. Please enjoy Steve's interview with PennLive's Dan Sostek.
Steve, I like to start from the beginning. Growing up, I assume you were always kind of a taller kid. When did the pro basketball dreams start? Because, I mean, I'm sure when you get to a certain height, people start kind of pushing you that way.
Yeah, I don't think I ever really thought as pro basketball as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I've always loved basketball. I always loved following it. But watching the NBA, like I was a big Phoenix Suns fan back when they had like Amari Stoudemire, Steve Nash, that kind of era.
What was it, 10 seconds or less or whatever?
Yeah,
Whatever
that West Coast offense.
Yeah.
So I don't think I ever viewed myself as being a guy like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I always loved playing basketball, and I grew up with my friends playing it, went up through the whole system. But then once in high school, colleges started coming to see me. Then the dream kind of started to become more of a reality.
Mm-hmm. When did you first? Were you always sort of taller than everyone else? Or was there a grade?
Yeah, I mean, my parents have a hilarious picture they love to show when I was younger playing youth baseball. I think
Mm-hmm.
I was probably either 10 or 11, and I was as tall as my coaches.
Yeah, so I think then probably all the Redland basketball coaches are going to have something here. But
Yeah,
yeah, so obviously you go to LaSalle, right? Have a really great career there. But obviously there's a big jump, right? I know you played some obviously other teams, but then you go to the summer league, right? You get
yeah,
that cup of coffee with the summer league. When you went into that situation, because obviously you weren't on like draft boards necessarily or anything.
right.
Um, was that sort of a situation where you kind of wanted to see how you stacked up against kind of at that level? Did you have confidence at by that point, or was it a little bit of both?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know, but the NBA Summer League is more of like it's kind of putting guys out there who are overseas products and
Hmm.
or G League guys, and they kind of just are looking if they can get like a diamond in the rough. Like, is there a guy that'll stand out this week that's like above the rest of the competition, or is it more of like just like a showcase for because if you ever go to the summer league, there's guys from every single country that are there scouting and all that kind of stuff. So it's more of like a showcase um, for overseas league, and also which guys they want to use for G League as well. That maybe they can like get a guy in the G League to develop. I've always had G League offers and opportunities because of that, but the money just doesn't compare to overseas, and that was kind of my main deciding factor. I mean, a lot of guys bet on themselves and do the G League route, but I was kind of like, uh, you never know how long this game could be taken away from you at any point. So I was going to try to make the most out of it as I could.
For sure, yeah, and that's kind of what I want to ask about. So that kind of gives us a little window into your thought process. But when did you was it kind of at Summer League that you first got approached about your kind of those overseas opportunities? Do people come up then, or I mean, I'm sure there's obviously agent stuff and all the
Yeah,
stuff that your agent takes care of. But when did you first kind of hear about your first opportunity to play overseas, and how'd that decision go?
yeah, it was kind of before going into summer league. So a lot of overseas teams they start to contact guys in like May and June. That's when a lot of
Mhm.
early contracts are put out. July is kind of pushing the envelope, and that's when summer league is. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it's in the beginning or middle of July now.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of contracts are usually signed in end of June, early July. And then end of July and early August is maybe the teams missed out on a few guys they wanted, and now they're just trying to plug holes that they missed. So I had some offers going into it, but it was more of like, let's see if we can get anything else out of this.
Yeah, and so you started out in Latvia, right?
Yeah, I kind of that's another um, thing that a lot of people don't know is usually when you come out of unless you're like a top college player that doesn't get picked by the NBA,
Hmm.
you usually start out low on the European ladder,
Yeah.
because they're not they don't because I mean they don't want to pay six figures to a guy that they don't know can, because a lot of factors go into it. I mean, it's not just being good at basketball. It's like, can he live abroad for 9 months? Can he be away from his family?
Hmm.
Because it's a culture shock for
Hmm.
a lot of rookies. I mean, now I'm 10 years into it. It's like, it's like a second
Yeah.
home to me. It's like a second home to me. But when you first start out, you start out kind of lower salary in smaller cities, smaller leagues, and that was my first job. And it's the guys who make it overseas are the guys who can, grind it out those first couple of years and climb that ladder.
Yeah. And how tough was that process? Because I think one of the things, as a someone who follows basketball pretty closely, one of the things people always say is, and you see it in the Olympics too, right? It's just because it's not the NBA. I mean, these are still really good basketball players at pretty much every level. And
Yeah,
then you're obviously going into a place you've never. I'm guessing you've never been to Latvia before that.
yeah, yeah.
Just how tough was that process for, like you said, especially that first time when you're not making the big money, and you're just kind of trying to make sense of everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I said, it's like a slap in the face almost. It's kind of like, I mean, you question everything you're doing. You're like, man, I got a business major. Like, why don't I just go use this in a job in America? Like, you really have to love the game,
Hmm.
to make it through something like that. And you have people around you too. I mean, you have guys. You meet a lot of people through basketball, um, like guys who were at LaSalle before me and things like that, and guys in Philly, and they just tell you, if you can just grind out that first year, second year, third year, that it just the benefits just they're endless. Like I had a guy, his name was Steve Smith. He was older than me at LaSalle, but he was living a great life in France, and he was kind of one of the guys that I was kind of viewing like, man, I can get to this point if I just grind this out. But man, that first year was pretty tough.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. Do you like? Obviously, you've been to a bunch of different countries now. Do you pick up any of the language at all? How do you like figure out the language? Because that feels like one of the toughest things for me, especially for you. You've
Yeah,
obviously played in a lot of different places.
yeah. I mean, the kind of thing. I've been in Japan now for 3 years now, so I'm kind of being in the same country. It kind of helps. You're just
Hmm.
around it. You're hearing guys speaking it, so you can kind of pick up on the language. But for a while there, I was just, like I said, climbing that ladder. So you're going from one country, now you're going to a higher contract in a different country, and you just keep going. So like you start to learn some of the language, and then you have to completely shift to learn another one. So
Yeah.
I try to be polite and learn like the basics, like hello, good morning, thank you, you're welcome, like those kind of things, just to show that I care, um,
Hmm.
and things like that. But yeah, it's tough when you try to learn something and then have to completely forget it and try to learn something new.
Yeah, and it feels like, every time I look at kind of an overseas player and you look at that section of the Wikipedia page with the teams, it's like every player is always switching. It's a lot of team switching everything.
Yeah.
How does that process work? Especially like you said, going from a sort of lower rung and trying to work your way up. I'm sure the contracts are probably shorter, probably have outs and things like that. But is that something you had to learn how to navigate as well?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of common for teams to just do 1 year contracts over here. You don't see
Hmm.
it a lot with like 2 year contracts and things like that because um, for one reason is guys get outbidded. Like teams will come in and say, hey, we'll pay you this and that, so they don't want to commit to a guy for 2 years like that. Also, injury. Um, Contracts here are fully guaranteed. I mean, I say that kind of with quotations because there is they do try to pull some, slick stuff over here. But if you do get hurt and you're on a 2 year contract and it's like, something that puts you out for a year, they have to pay that money. So they don't want to lock themselves into that. They kind of want to move on to the next thing. So
Yeah.
um, 1 year contracts are kind of the basic thing just for those two reasons.
Was that stressful for you at all? Like, you had just kind of gotten used to your Latvia place, and then you have to kind of find a whole new cook. Because again, it's not like America. Like it's America. You switch teams. You're in a different state or whatever, and and there's probably stuff I don't even think about, like different money, different taxes, things like that. Like how stressful was that first switch for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was as after my like first 2 years, I think I kind of had I kind of had the stats and notability to like pick where I wanted to go. I'd have like multiple, not just having one offer. I'd have like multiple offers and like the city. Like I would Google cities and see like compare like what kind of cities it is. Once my basketball network tree kind of grew, I would reach out to guys who had formerly played for that team, um, and that was my biggest advice to guys I played with
Hmm.
that were kind of younger than me. I said, hey, when you get like these new offers, look up the last 2 years, what guys played there, and kind of reach out to them and get like as much information on the team as you can. Like how's the management there? How's the living? Is the housing they give you nice? Like just all things like that, and that kind of really helps guys over here kind of figure out where they want to go, and it also it's kind of almost like a secret like players union too, because guys who have nightmares with certain teams or certain places aren't don't treat them the best. They don't get the guys that they want because players talk, and so that kind of forces teams to be better.
Yeah, and because that's the thing you kind of hear about sometimes, is that there are some horror stories, right, about certain, like, because there's just so many teams. It's not like the NBA again where there's 30.
Yeah,
There's hundreds of hundreds. It's either going to be some tough stories, so you kind of have to navigate that as well.
yeah,
So you played in Bulgaria, you played in Poland, then you play. Obviously, Israel's one of the best, one of those top leagues as well. And it felt like
yeah,
that's where you kind of really kind of had some of your best seasons there, right?
yeah,
Um, in Israel too. Obviously, it's in the news right now. Patrick Beverly just went there recently
yep.
and kind of said, it was a great experience for them and everything. But um, what was that like? Was it completely normal? Because I've been to Israel once too. It feels like it's a pretty segmented place in terms of that kind of stuff. Did you feel safe when you were there? Obviously, it wasn't when everything was going on, but
Yeah, I mean, besides like obviously this time it was a lot different,
Mhm.
with that whole like raid and
Yeah,
all the terrible things that went on. But when I was there, it was like I was living in Miami for a whole year.
yeah, that's what I've heard.
It's
Yeah, that's
90-degree weather, palm trees, never bad weather. It's sunny every day. You go to practice and you go and when you get out, you can walk 5 minutes and you're on the beach.
mhm.
Um, and then I did it. I was able to. I mean, not that's a good thing, but I did experience like the Iron Dome.
Mhm.
Uh, it's just like fireworks. You go outside, the sirens go off, and you go outside, and it's just like fireworks in the sky of the
Mhm.
missiles intercepting. But everyone in Israel that I was around always just guaranteed that it was you're not in any harm's way.
Yeah,
It's unless something like serious like this last time, like
yeah,
nothing's really ever going to happen to you. So I enjoyed the 2 years I spent there, and
yeah. And the basketball's really like that's I know been a big league there, right? And obviously there've been some players come there, so that I'm sure that was probably like another step, I assume, sort of in kind of the rung
yeah,
of your career.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny. My first year in Israel, that was when Amari Stoudemire was making his pilgrimage, and as I said, like he was I had his jersey in my childhood bedroom, and then
That's incredible.
I ended up playing against him. So
Yeah,
it was. I have a picture of in my. I have a picture at home of me blocking his shot. It's kind of I hold on to forever.
yeah.
But
Until your heroes become your rivals, right?
yeah, exactly. But yeah, Israel was like when. Well, actually, the 2 years prior though, the Rush I played when I went back to Latvia and then I played in the Russian VTB league,
Hmm.
and that was that's
Yeah,
also a lot of ex NBA guys. That was super competitive, and then I went to Turkey after that, and the Turkish league is also you have a lot of ex NBA guys or guys who are right on the cusp. Like Jan Vesely. I don't know if you know that name, or like Shane
Yeah,
Larkin.
yeah. I think he was. What was he? The supposed to? They were always comparing him to Paul Pierce. So it's like
Yeah, yeah,
as a Celtics fan, I didn't like, but
yeah.
yeah. I mean, he was a baller in Europe.
So I kind of had those 2 years to prep for that have gotten me in these like big leagues playing against these guys, and that's when my career kind of took off. Was after that year in the Russian league.
Yeah. So so obviously 2022 you go to Japan, which I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily think of basketball in Japan, at least, but it's been kind of growing, right? And we saw them in the Olympics do pretty well.
Yeah.
And obviously this league's grown as well. What kind of got Japan on your radar? Because that was like the first thing that stuck to me was that, wow, he obviously had a really good European career and is now in Japan. Kind of, why'd you end up deciding to go there?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. It was the money. They uh,
Hmm.
they offered me a contract that I couldn't refuse, um, and also they like to bring in big guys that are kind of like older and have a higher IQ.
Hmm.
They don't really. I think because the league has so many older big guys, in the late 20s, early 30s. Young guys don't really do well here because they're playing against a guy who has much more skin in the game. He's been around, he knows how to play this game for a long time at this level. But
Hmm.
also I just heard kept hearing great things about here. I mean, every single game is sold out. The fans are amazing. The living here is amazing. Um, like I would honestly buy a second home here in Japan. It's just a great place to be. So that's why I spent the last 3 years playing here.
Yeah, and I saw it on your Twitter too. But I mean, I saw you went to a baseball game because my friend's brother actually runs a restaurant in Kyoto, and
Oh,
they went to
nice.
the baseball game, and he said it was like one of the craziest like sporting events he's ever been to, and I think you saw that too. Just
Yeah.
have you seen? Obviously, I don't know if it's going to get to where baseball is in Japan overnight, but have you kind of seen that culture playing in Japan the last few years?
Yeah. I mean, I think the national team making it to the Olympics has kind of driven it up by like tenfold.
Hmm.
My first year in 2020, so like the way like in Japan, like the games work is like you always play the same team, a doubleheader on Saturday and Sunday. So you'll play Saturday, then you'll play the same team again on Sunday. and
Hmm.
then and then you'll have a Wednesday night game too against just you'll just play one Wednesday night game, and then again another doubleheader on the weekends. So my first year, those Wednesday night 7 p.m. games, they were kind of maybe 75% 80 full.
Hmm.
But now, ever since that Olympics happened with the basketball team, it's just brought so much attention to basketball over Japan. So now, like games are Wednesday night games and weekend games are being sold out like a month in advance. People can't even get tickets for these games.
Hmm.
So I don't think right. It won't ever get to baseball's level just because obviously a baseball is
Yeah.
the stadiums are much bigger. They can seat a lot more people, but you also have teams out here that are selling out 10,000 people arenas. So um, I think the interest for basketball is just growing and growing.
Has anything surprised you being in Japan? About just even if it's not related to basketball, just like being around there. Is there anything that's been surprising living there?
Yeah, I mean it's like the nicest place ever. Like
That's
like
what I've heard.
in 3 years, I have yet to meet like a bad person or somebody who was like kind of cold towards you. Like it's just an amazing place to live. Like there's zero crime, there's zero litter. I mean, I'm sure there is small crime and stuff like
Yeah,
petty crime, but like it's just a great place to be. Like walk around, meet people. I just love it here. It's incredible.
that's awesome. And so the schedule of being an overseas player. When you said because you don't have a home there or anything. When do you come home to the States during the off season?
Yeah, so I actually have a me and my wife, we have a house actually still in the Redland area. So
Oh,
that's kind of
nice.
that's kind of like our home base.
Hmm.
So she we also have two daughters, so she kind of comes back and forth during the year. So she'll be at home, taking care of the house and stuff like that, and making sure everything's good. And then they'll also spend time with me here. Um, they're actually home right now. That's why you don't hear any noise. My kids. But then like also when they're over here with me, we have family in the area too that checks on the house. But yeah, it was nice. For my first 2 or 3 years, we were doing short-term apartment rentals every summer. So like we'd have to move everything in the apartment at the beginning of summer, and then move it all out and put it in a storage unit, and then move it back in. And we're like, all right, this is enough of that. Let's just buy a house.
It's like college getting an internship or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah. And so in terms of that, how long are the seasons? Like, is it a typical? Is it as long? It's not as long as like an NBA season, right?
yeah. No, no, it's not as long as an NBA season, but we're here from August to May. So it's
Okay,
usually the contracts usually set up between 9 and 10 months.
gotcha. And so you said you obviously still have a house in the Redland area. Are you still still involved in the basketball scene at all here when you can? Or are you more focused on the family stuff right now? Is that something that when your career's over, you want to get more involved in as a coach, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to, get back into it. Now that Coach Mahaffey is the
Hmm.
now the head coach of Redland, and then all of that whole staff that was with me when I was coming
Hmm.
up through Redland, they kind of all gotten back into it. So I think the Redland basketball is back now, headed in the right direction. There was a time there was wasn't very thing to be proud of for a couple of years
Yeah.
there. But I think Coach Mahaffey's doing a great job of getting that in the right direction. So um, I do try to get back when my schedule works. I try to go in and see the guys and stuff like that. So once I am done playing, yeah, I definitely want to be get back involved with the community in basketball.
Yeah. I mean, uh, how like if you look back at it too, like when you're back at like looking back at Redland, like if you told, like you said, you never really expect to be a pro basketball player. That like if you told the like a 10-year-old kid in Lewisberry or whatever that you were going to end up traveling the world playing basketball, is that like have you ever like kind of sat back and kind of thought about kind of these opportunities and like these places like around Orange Ball's taking you?
Yeah, I mean I mean sometimes I still can't even really think of it. Um, I never thought I'd play overseas, and then especially for this long. I'm on ten
Yeah.
years. I'm on 10 years now. It's like my body's still healthy. I'm still going strong. So um, it's crazy to think about that. I've been through. I've completed a whole passport. Like I'm on my second passport just because all the stamps I've had from traveling around. It's
Mhm.
truly amazing to be able to see the other side of the world. And I've also been places too that visited that aren't so great, and it kind of makes you appreciate everything we have in America and the things I have at home. So it's kind of it's a big blessing and things to be grateful for, and I'm happy that I've been able to be on this journey.
Nice. Just a couple more rapid fire questions. I'll let you go. Uh, what is the best like food that you've had over this entire run? I'm sure there's probably been some really awesome food you've had overseas, but is there like something that you can think of that like sticks out as being like an amazing meal you've had overseas that you might not be able to
Yeah,
get in America?
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm kind of biased now because I've been in Japan for 3 years now,
Yeah.
but they have these things called like yakiniku restaurants. It's kind of like Korean barbecue,
Oh man.
but here it's with like Japanese wagyu beef. I'm a huge steak guy, so just going to a yakiniku restaurant and eating the wagyu. I mean, you kind of grill it yourself, so that's probably my favorite thing to eat.
Damn, that's awesome. And who's the obviously you probably played against a lot of pretty good players. Is there one player that has given you fits more than any other player overseas throughout this career?
Yeah, probably my hardest match I've ever faced was Quincy Acey.
Oh,
He was a Baylor guy.
that's
Yeah,
fun. Yeah, the Nets guy, right? The
yeah,
big ball guy.
yeah.
Yeah, he was a problem. Yeah, that's fun. And then just last question for you. Just you kind of answered a little bit, but what's something that um, people who don't think about like just kind of see the term playing overseas, like what's one of the biggest challenges that you don't think anybody would kind of realize is difficult about playing overseas?
I think the biggest misconception is like people, like a lot of people we talk to, they think it's like a vacation. They think they think, oh, like you're living abroad and you're playing basketball. You get to see the world, but it's like it's it's the complete opposite than that. There's a lot of there's a lot of times when you're homesick. You're in foreign places. You're missing out on holidays with family and friends. Like a Super Bowl party, like obviously things like that you miss out on. It actually is a job, and it takes a lot of mental toughness to do this. So I think that's probably the biggest misconception is like people who make it overseas, they really have to, it's a grind. It's not a vacation.
Thank you for watching the PennLive interview with Steve Zack. See Dan Sostek's story on PennLive.com on Friday, January 31st. And follow the rest of PennLive sports coverage at PennLive.com.